that is advanced today. Now, allow me to introduce our esteemed panel of judges. It's my honor to introduce our distinguished adjudicators for this round. Firstly, I would like to introduce Professor Khalid Shamim sir. Professor Khalid Shamim is a professor of law at Shibli National PG College, Azamgarh, Uttar Pradesh, India, with his specialization in international law and intellectual property law, specifically patent law. Professor Khalid Shamim has research experience of over 7 years and teaching experience of more than 2 decades, including that of UG and PG classes. He has supervised researches, presented papers, and delivered interdisciplinary lectures at various recognized institutions across the nation. We are privileged to have you with us, sir. Next, we have Dr. Nizamuddin Ahmad Siddiqui sir with us. Dr. Nizamuddin Ahmad Siddiqui is co-founder of Project Mishkat and visiting faculty at Villa College, Maldives, and he has also served as assistant professor at Department of Law at Law Jindal Global Law School, and he has made several media presence and authored articles on contemporary issues and minority issues. His interests lies span international law, Islamic law, and minority issues. And we are honored to have you with us, sir. Now, before we begin, here are the rules for today's debate for the participants as well as for the judges. Now, moving forward to the rules and format of the debate, each participants will have 5 minutes for the main body of the speech, followed by 1 minute for the concluding remarks. Participants may request additional time from the judges during their main speech. Participants can ask for extension of not more than 30 seconds from the judges, and the judges may approve or deny as per their discretion. It is upon the discretion of the judges to allow for the same. After each participant's speech, we will have a questionnaire round where both our judges and members of the audience may ask questions regarding the arguments presented by the participants. A questions round will follow the main speech. After a participant concludes, participant, judges, and the virtual gallery, which is the audience, can put forth questions regarding the argument presented with the permission of the honorable judges. And one more rule is that there is no time limit for answers for the questions that are being asked by the judges or the participants or the audience. And second rule, that is for connectivity and disruption policy. If a speaker disconnects for less than 2 minutes and reconnects, they may resume with the remaining time. If the disconnection lasts more than 2 minutes, the presiding adjudicator or the tournament organizing committee will decide whether to pause, wait, or move, or to back up the round. Participants are also requested to keep their contact numbers active for technical support and may be asked to provide connection logs or screenshots if required. Now, rule for the commencement of the debate. Now, moving forward to the commencement of the debate, with the permission of the panel of judges, let's begin the final round of the Orathon 1.0. I would like the humble permission of the panel of judges to start this final rounds of the Orathon 1.0.
Permission granted.
Now, I would like to invite our very first speaker, ODR6. Please take the virtual floor and present your arguments for the motion, this house wants a new world order. ODC 6. Participants ODC 6. The floor is now yours. Participant ODC 6. Okay, no issue. ODC 6 is not present here right now. Now I would like to call upon the second participants, that is the ODC 7. ODC 7, please take the virtual floor and present your arguments for the motion, this house wants a new world order. ODC 7. Participants ODC 7, floor is now yours.
Thank you. Honorable judges, participants, and audience, the motion invites us to desire a new world order. My argument against it is simple. World order cannot serve as the unit of change because it names a fiction. There is no single world and there has never been a single order governing it. The phrase hides plurality, erases diversity, and compresses entire histories into an illusion of unity. This illusion is grounded in a colonial worldview. It grows from the Hobbesian fantasy that only the sovereign state creates order while everything outside it sinks into chaos. Neorealism observed this frame and called it science. It painted states as eternal units, balance of power as eternal law, and human behavior as eternal competition. Yet, the moment we step outside this colonial frame, other global formations appear. Swahili trade networks linked city states and hinterland polities without a single authority. The Indian Ocean world sustained circulation through shared norms, seasonal rhythms, and commercial ethics, not interstate hierarchy. Andean ALU communities built regional coordination through communal labor across ecological zones without any Westphalian structure. These were multiple worlds, plural worlds, no single order. This plurality matters because it exposes the poverty of the category that the proposition wants to redesign. And once we examine how global patterns actually form, the illusion collapses further. Critical theory in IR, especially the work of Robert Cox, reveals what the phrase world order hides. It hides the forces that truly structure global life. In his essay, quote, Social Forces, States and World Orders, unquote, which is one of the most cited articles in the literature on IR, Cox shows that world order sits at the end of a sequence. First, the organization of production generates social forces. These forces reshape states. As these altered states interact, they produce global patterns. World order emerges from this process. It has no capacity to act on its own. So the proposition traps itself in a fundamental mistake. It treats the world order as an agent, it treats an outcome as a lever. Calling for a new world order grants power to a structure that possesses no agency. Any attempt to change world order becomes a project in moving shadows while ignoring what casts them. This is not just abstract theory. The consequences of this fetish are visible today. Consider BRICS, an intergovernmental organization consisting of 10 states from the global south. We hear constant claims that BRICS will inaugurate a new world order and break Western dominance. Yet, when we examine how these states actually behave, the picture changes entirely. In an article published on the Telegraph, economist Prabhat Patnaik shows that even if a BRICS currency basket replaced the dollar and created a new world order, austerity, unemployment, and dependency would remain. Why? Because the underlying structures of global capitalism remain untouched. Look closely. Asset managers such as BlackRock and Vanguard hold major positions in both Western and BRICS economies, including Chinese giants like Sinopec. This means that capital flows across so called rival blocks without any friction. The economic models of these blocks rely on the prioritization of investor security. In other words, the stage actors change, yet the script stays exactly the same. This is the real harm of the idea of a new world order. It blinds us to the structures that actually produce injustice. It shifts attention away from labor relations, away from extraction, away from authoritarian governance, and towards an abstract banner that gives the illusion of transformation. So, real power lies in social relations, labor, capital, technology, ecological pressures, and ideology. Change these and global patterns shift. Ignore these by using the idea of a new world order, and every supposed world becomes a theatrical performance with zero substance. To sum up, I have shown that the concept of world order is empty twice over. It fails conceptually because it ignores plurality, and it fails structurally because, as Robert Cox demonstrates, it is merely an outcome produced by deeper forces. So I urge the House to reject this colonial desire for a new world order. It erases diversity, misreads power, and diverts energies of reform towards an abstraction that has no capacity to change anything. Real transformation begins in places beyond the capture of world order. Thank you.
Thank you, DC7, for your compelling presentation. We will now move into the rebuttal segment. Do participants have any question? Okay, do judges have any questions?
What does it do?
I think ODC2 has some questions.
Yes, ODC2, please.
Although you don't understand being nihilistic government, but you don't know.
ODC2, you are not audible. ODC2, do you have any questions?
Okay, if you allow me, I have a question.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. I think that was a wonderful presentation and very concise. It was to the point. One simple question, and probably a kind of taking the idea forward. You are hitting at the proposition at two levels. One is that conceptually it is not possible. So there is no concept called as world order. It cannot exist, or it does not have any worth. And the second is structurally it's not possible. The reason is because it marginalizes or kind of ignores certain realities. Now, just in a statement, or let's say a couple of statements, two or three, if you can help us understand, if not this kind of world order, then what it is all about. Okay, what do you propose as another conceptual category that probably can be looked at, if not the conceptual category of the world order?
Yeah. Um, so the argument about the conceptual poverty of the word world order and its structural poverty, both of them are interlinked, because structural poverty means that since world order ignores the causal network of the world, that's why it's poor. And that's why it fails to incorporate many other historical cases. So, uh, based on these two interlinked arguments, I believe that we need to jettison the very desire to provide a single alternative about how to govern the world. And this is encapsulated in decolonial and post-colonial theories of the pluriverse. Pluriverse basically means that instead of thinking in terms of globality, which presupposes uniformity, homogeneity, standardization, we give up the very attempt to impose globality. We de-link from this entire theme, as Walter Mignolo says, and we work out localized alternatives. This obviously means that there can be no single alternative, and it is an open-ended process of decolonial, site-specific, localized thinking. And it does demand a lot of work, but I think it is already going on. In Mexico, we have the Zapatista movement, which refuses to think in terms of a single solution. Instead, there is just a practice of communitarian or deliberative democracy so that solutions are worked out contextually.
By the permission of the judges, if ODC2 wants to ask the question.
Please go ahead.
ODC2.
I'm actually facing internet issues. I have posted the question on the chat, however.
Can I
So
answer
the
the
question
question?
is, yes, okay.
Yeah. So the question misunderstands my point because I did not say that the world order is essentially Hobbesian. In fact, my point was the opposite. I said that Western theories of IR and the broader regimes of colonial knowledges, they treat the world as if it were a Hobbesian conflict of order against disorder. So I try to break away from that Hobbesian binary by outlining alternatives that don't even presuppose this binary. So, yeah, I think the question misunderstood my point.
Do the members of virtual gallery have any questions? Okay, so if there are none question, by the permission of the judges, can we move further?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
I would like to invite now ODC 4 to take the stage.
Am I audible?
Yes, ODC 4, you are audible.
Okay. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, there's a need to change the new model. Good evening, respected jury members, worthy organizers, and my opponents. Today, IODC 4 stands for the motion titling the topic This House Wants a New World Order. Before starting with the topic, it's very important for all of us to understand that what do we mean by this term world order. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to draw your attention on this terminology. It consists of the prevailing international organizations that are firstly the United Nations, secondly the International Court of Justice, thirdly the International Criminal Court, and fourthly the World Trade Organizations. So all these organizations with the conventions existing that are working on international levels forms the world order. And when we are talking about the changes that are required, here we need to enforce all of these, including the conventions, the treaties, and all the agreements that are binding on international levels. Because at international level, where we lack is the binding enforceability. Because still, if we talk about or if we take example of the Ukraine Russia war, there's no enforceability. You can't prosecute them. You can't put all the uh, accused in the prisons because there's no enforceability on the international level. And here, when we are talking for the motion, then there's a need for enforceability overall. Now, moving towards my pointers, starting with the very first pointer, I would like to draw your attention that the current global order is failing. Now, if we look behind to the 1945 world order that included United Nations Bretton Woods security blocks, it is outdated if we compare it with the 21st century. Now, if we talk about the developing countries like India, they are still existing and they are not able to match the international norms. Because if we talk about the United Nations, they still respect and give recognition to the wealthier economies like USA. And that's what we need as a citizens to file petition at the international level and to make them realize that there is a need to recognize the need of the developing countries as well. Now, moving towards my second pointer, that is the ineffective global governance on conflict and peace. Now, moving towards, again, the Ukraine Russia war of 2022, there was no enforceability at international level. There was no restraint. Still, the war is ongoing from 2022. Can you believe this? We have international organizations existing and still the war is ongoing because the human rights, that is the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is still existing. We have a certain strong conventions, but they are not able to protect the rights of the humans because there's no enforceability again. Now, moving towards my third pointer, that is the rising economic inequality and unfair trade structures. If we take example to the WTO rules favors wealthier economies, as I have stated earlier. Global supply chains, like for example, the US European countries still holds the power over all the trade activities. They have the power in their hand, and they are not shifting the trade towards the developing countries, and they're not giving the stance to the developing countries so that they can increase their trade, so that they can speak for themselves in the courts. They are not getting opportunities for that. If we take a recent example of COVID-19 pandemic, then it's quite shocking to know that Africa, as a developing country received only a 5% doses of vaccine. Where were the supreme powers? Where was the USA? Where were the European countries? They never helped them. And only 5% vaccines were received by this country. If I talk about the International Monetary Fund crisis that occurred in Sri Lanka and Pakistan and several African countries, it again showed that there is a biased financial structure because World Trade Organization is reluctant in supporting the developing countries. Now moving towards my fifth pointer, that is climate crisis, which needs a governance model, a new governance model. Now current environmental organization or governance is still failing. Rich nations pledged climate finance, but most of it never materialized for developing countries. If we take into record the census of 2023-24 heat waves that occurred in Canadian wildfires, global flooding, there was no one to help because they are again developing countries or underdeveloped in nature. Moving towards my sixth and very important pointer, that is technology has outpaced regulation. AI, cybersecurity, and digital warfare require global norms. Because whenever we are talking about world order, we need to strengthen all the global international organizations. And that's why all my pointers are concentrated towards these organizations. Moving towards the second pointer, that is the current order cannot regulate big tech data sovereignty or weaponized information because there is still data breach. If we talk about a conflict between a developing country and a developed country, that is an ongoing war of Russia and Ukraine, then Russia is so powerful that it is able to outreach, it is able to intervene the data sovereignty of Ukraine because Ukraine is a small country and there's no one to support it. So there's a breach in every form, whether it is in media form, international media form, digital form, or physical form. Because developing countries are not able to raise their voice to the United Nations because it will obviously support the wealthier countries. Cyber attacks are still ongoing. Moving
Time is up.
towards
Time is up.
okay,
Participant, the time is up. You can ask for the permission of judges for the extension of time.
sir, I would like to conclude my debate in just 2 lines, if permission is granted by the honorable judges.
Please go ahead.
Okay, sir, I would like to state a very famous shloka in Sanskrit, if I'm permitted, because it's a universal language. That is Sarva Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarva Santu Niramaya, which means that may all be happy and may all be free from suffering. This shloka signifies that the spirit of the new world order we seek is required. One where peace is shared, prosperity is equal, and progress is universal. This was it for my debate. Thank you, honorable judges, for listening to me peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you, ODC, for your compelling presentation. With the permission of the judges, we will now move into the rebuttal segment. Do
Yes, move on.
do the participants have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ODC one, please.
uh, as per your stating, not every major power will want the new order which is being established. What is your plan for that spoiler state? For instance, if a nuclear armed country like Russia or China objects and rejects the new system and uses their military and economic power to sabotage the transition, what will be the process further?
Respected opponent, I would like to answer your query in 2 limbs. See, whenever we signify or whenever we ratify to any of the convention, we are obligated to it. We have a certain sort of responsibility. See, if India is a part of BRICS, then it will definitely be responsible for all the activities that it is planning or that it is conducting at an international level. So it's important for the supreme powers like USA, Russia to understand and to obligate to the United Nations conventions. If you are a signatory to it, if you have ratified the same, then you need to be responsible for the enforceability part as well. See, if the court has passed an order, if the International Court of Justice has passed an order, then it is for me as a supreme country, as a supreme power, important for me to understand their norms and follow their regards and regulations. And what we can do is what we can suggest in the meetings, in the conciliation meetings, what we can suggest as countries is that there must be a strengthening in the whole process. There must be armed forces that should be given to the International Court of Justice at international level so that they can regulate the whole process. They can effectively enforce the human rights because we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we have the ICCPR, we have the ICCR, all the convention are existing. But where we are failing as a country is the enforceability part, and that is where I stand, that there must be responsibility on their heads also. However, the Court of Justice on a normal basis passes a lot of orders. So it's important for a supreme energy, a supreme power to understand that we are responsible as a supreme power because we are channelizing, we are holding all the countries, we are acting as an inspiration for them. So it is responsible. It is our responsibility to be abide by all the conventions and follow the regards of the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court. Thank you.
Thank you so much. But according to you, you want to demolish the whole current UN framework, but you even support the plan wherein in your new order you would like to actually have the functionaries of UN still working. Just
Yeah, I don't want to demolish the whole system. See, we want a new order. New order in the sense, if we talk about the country like India, we often see a lot of amendments, like 106 amendments are already there in the Constitution of India. So, whenever we are implementing or whenever we are introducing new changes,
Sorry to
it is
interrupt
not
you.
always in the form of a new act, it is in the form of the
Participants,
amendment or alteration. I
uh,
hope you understand.
as a convener of the debate, I would like to make the point clear is that only participants can ask one question only at a time, not a series of questions. It's not a rebuttal type, it's a question. Any participant can ask a question, only one question at a time. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ODC 7, you may continue with your question.
Yes. So you framed the issue as one of implementation and enforceability. So how do you position yourself in relation to indigenous scholars like John Burroughs, Van Napoleon, and the critical indigenous legal theory tradition as a whole, which says that the problem is not only in the enforcement of laws, but in the very imposition of settler colonial sovereignty through international law. They say that they reject the laws themselves because they were framed without their involvement. Native Americans say this, for instance. So, how do you say that the problem is only of implementation?
So I mentioned that it is not just about the enforceability part, it is about the responsibility. See, if we are a party to a conciliation meeting, if we are attending all the meetings, if we are part of BRICS, then definitely we are responsible for each and every activity which is ongoing. So what do I mention here is that there's a need of alteration and amendments. So when we will propose amendments to the United Nations Security Council, then they will definitely consider it that there's a need to understand the whole convention. If we are a signatory to it, it's important for all of us to be responsible for each and every direction that the United Nations pass. And if we are talking about the supreme powers, that is the United States or the Russia, they will definitely obligate to it once the United Nations ratified the same, because it's the responsibility of United Nations. And once we will propose the plan as a citizen or as a united body, as unanimously we present a proposal or plan, because there's a need of change. If we talk in practicality terms, then there is a need to propose something to them so that they can understand. That's why we have solitary generals, that's why we have advocates acting at international levels. So as a scholar, as all the jurists have well said in your the theory that you have mentioned, that there's no fault in the implementation part, but there is a that the laws are acting from the British colonial period. That's why the central powers lies in the supremacy of the developed countries. But what do I want to state is that there's a need to propose something. When we will propose something to them, definitely they will listen to us, and in accordance with that, they will implement the changes that has been suggested by us. Thank you.
One thing I would like to add, that the participants are required to keep their camera on throughout the competition. Moving further, do judges have any questions?
Khalid sir, if you have, you can go ahead.
Sir, I have a simple question. Given the current geopolitical divisions, how can we realistically expect nations to agree on the principle and structure of a new world order? For clarification चाहूंगा इनसे.
So, whenever we ratify to any of the United Nations convention or anything, a body, then it's totally up to us, because not all the countries are signatory to any of the United Nations. It is totally up to us. But if we are ratifying it, if we are giving our signature to it, then it becomes our sole responsibility to act as a responsible country and respect the sovereignty of other countries. Sir, as you have said, that what all as a country we can do, sir, as a country we can do is that there's a need to promote the human rights at a great level in our country as well, because firstly it is important for all of us to aware our citizens about the rights that are existing, because if we will be able to regulate our internal conflicts, then only we will be able to act as a great economy, because India is the fifth largest economy existing in the world. So if I take example of India, then India as a responsible country is helping the other nations as well, is a signatory to BRICS, is a signatory to the United Nations. It is following all the convention. Even if we take a example of the domestic legislations, then India always take example in the objective sections of every act. The international conventions are always mentioned in the several acts that has been implemented in the countries. If we take an example of the Domestic Violence Act, if we take example of the POXO Act, then we always take relevance of the United Nations conventions, and that's what is required by all other countries. If we have to act as a world power, if we need to maintain the world order unanimously, then we have to implement the human rights, we have to respect the conventions at the internal level first. We need to aware our citizens first about all the rights that are existing at the international levels, because still in the meeting I like most of us were not sure about the world order definition. So it's important for all of us to create awareness. Even as a student, for me, as a scholar, for me, it's important to create awareness about the international trades, organizations, and all the convention existing, so that we can maintain the internal peace. Then, as a country, we can act outside, and then we can follow all the international norms. And as a signatory, we ratify our responsibility, and we take our responsibility at a supreme paramount importance.
Okay, with the permission of the judges, uh, do members of virtual gallery have any question? I'm really sorry, Nizam sir, do you have any question to ask?
I actually had a question, but I think many questions have already been asked from the speaker. So I just had one comment, actually, not a question, and the comment is, you highlighted a number of crises starting from trade, business relations, and all. But you should also have mentioned the biggest humanitarian crisis that we are seeing is the Gaza crisis and the Sudanese crisis that's happening. And why this is important? Because the 1948 Genocide Convention is the first convention that was adopted by the United Nations, even before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So that makes it very very important, and that could have also been highlighted here. But that's just a comment, so no questions from my side. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to clarify one thing that I was having lack of time. That's why I covered the economic orders or economic organs first. That's why I didn't give example of the genocide. However, I'm aware about it, the genocide convention, but I was taking it to the economic level. That's why I mentioned the economic growth of the country as well.
Thank you, ODC, for your arguments. With the permission of judges, I would like to invite ODC 2 against the motion to take the stage.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
ODC
Uh,
2, the stage is all yours.
right. So greetings. So today, the government came and they made a bold statement, right? Let's redesign the entire global system. Let's create a new world order. But when you peel away that rhetoric, what they are really proposing is that they are asking us to throw away the only set of global rules that we have. They're asking us to replace them with like this shiny, undefined, centralized system that they cannot really operationalize, they cannot enforce, they cannot even justify it, right? And even if we take into consideration the middle part that the last speaker tried to sort of pinch in, several chinks will appear in their argument as well. And further justification from their part will just end up collapsing their stance into conceding to the case that opposition is going to make right now, essentially, right? So on the opposition bench, we are very clear, right? We do not want a new world order because the idea is unimplementable, it is normatively unjustifiable, and strategically it is reckless, right? So we will take the government at the strongest interpretation first. A new world order, according to them, would be a large scale systemic overhaul, right, of political, economic, and security structures at the global level, meaning new rules, new institutions, new enforcement mechanisms that are like binding on states, right? This is not small reforms, this is not better cooperation, this is about replacing, absolutely replacing the existing order with a fundamentally different architecture, right? So that is giving us the central clash of this debate, right? So what government wants is replacement, what opposition wants is improvement. um, that's a first push. Our stance is actually very simple. The world does not need a new order. It needs better functioning of the existing pluralistic system, right? So what we propose and we will defend is an alternative. It will be modular. It will be issue specific reforms, right? That will strengthen cooperation, that will, without dismantling the underlying stability of sovereign decision making, and we will be winning this debate on three grounds. Please note this. First would be that can a new world order be feasibly implemented? Second would be, is a new world order morally desirable? And third would be, which world generates fewer risks and better outcomes, right? So I will take each in turn. What the government wants is global coordination, but they refuse to confront the foundational problem, right? You cannot centralize global governance without breaking the core incentive structures of sovereign states, right? So sovereignty is not this in the air philosophical idea. It is an operational fact that that can't really be denied. So every state's leaders, they are deriving legitimacy from domestic accountability. Every state's primary obligation is to its own people, its own borders, its own interests. So any new world order must go one of two ways. Either it has to be like a voluntarily abided by new world order, then it collapses into like this lowest common denominator rules idea, right? Because no state will give up real power voluntarily. And you get like vague statements. What you'll get is vague systems, weak enforcement. What you'll get is like symbolic commitments, right? And second option would be coercive new world order, right? That would just abjectly violate sovereignty, the Westphalian sovereignty. It will abjectly provoke like resistance. It becomes morally illegitimate as well, right? So either it is too weak to matter on one hand, or it is too oppressive to function, right? So this on government side is a structural failure. And it can't really escape that because it comes from the nature of international politics, right? Not from bad actors or poor design. Um, Next, let's be very clear, to create a new world order, you need universal rules on a plethora of things, right? On human rights, or democracy, on migration, or on markets, or AI, like the previous speaker mentioned, right? And these areas are not places of consensus. They are places of deep moral disagreement, right? So the government wants global uniformity, but the world is built on value diversity, right? There is no single correct model of governance. Some societies prioritize individual rights, others want like economic freedom, right? Some prioritize social equity, others want like community stability or something, right? So a new world order necessarily picks one of these. And because every rule you write excludes alternatives, you can't have cultural, like there will be cultural homogenization, there will be political imperialism, and there'll also be like a moral erasure of some sort, right? And this is wrong, not because of history, but because it violates the right of communities to define their own ethical priorities, right? So opposition is protecting this pluralism. Government is like abjectly destroying it. So even if a new world order were desirable in theory, the government has to explain how we get from here to there, right? They don't do that. So, and that is like the most dangerous part of their case as well, because the global system is not an abstract concept, right? It is embedded in supply chains, in military alliances, in currency networks, right? So when you overhaul the world order, you don't just change institutions, right? You suspend certainty. And states don't know which rules to follow, which commitments to trust, or like which actors have authority. So in that period of uncertainty, rational actors, corporations, militaries, intelligence agencies, black markets, they will exploit this vacuum, right? So strategic exposure is not an academic concern; it is predictable outcome of systemic overhaul. So our comparative is basically that we are not defending status quo good, we defend status quo repairable, and we are saying that a new world order sounds bold, it sounds visionary, but it collapses under the weight of its own ambition, right? It cannot be implemented without violating sovereignty. It cannot be justified without erasing pluralism. It cannot be transitioned into without generating enormous risk, right? So opposition offers a realistic, principled, and safe alternative. Reform is needed. We concede to that, but uh, preserving diversity is also essential. So for these reasons, we are proud to oppose.
Thank you, DC2, for your compelling presentation. With the permission of judges, we will now move into the rebuttal segment.
Please go ahead. Please.
With the permission of the judges, do participants have any questions? Yes, ODC1, please go ahead.
As stated that there needs to be some incremental reforms, but isn't it a polite way of saying that we don't want to do anything? We are just escalating it diplomatically. For decades in UN, we are talking about the veto power hustle, and we are talking about the environmental issues, and there is actually nothing being done. The world is on fire, and you are offering a teacup of water.
Yeah, so fair, right? Fair. We are not defending the status quo, right? We are defending a different model of change. It's supposed to be issue specific, it's supposed to be like modular reform. So my comparative is not like keep things the same, it's more like change things in a way that is actually feasible. So revolution is going to be violent, it's going to be not something which has certainty, and certainty is something that we are valuing on our side. And that's something which on government's case is falling. So yeah.
ODC7, please go ahead with your question.
You appreciate the fact of pluralism, but at the same time, you consider sovereignty, the entire Westphalian system of sovereignty, to be morally legitimate and, in fact, inviolable. How do you reconcile these two claims? Because basically, there have been countless critiques of sovereignty precisely for its homogenizing impulse. And the violation of sovereignty has also been considered to be legitimate. Anarchist traditions, and even in the current context of the Gaza genocide, in which the de-Zionization of Israel, basically its de-sovereignization, it is considered legitimate. So how do you appreciate pluralism even while considering sovereignty to be morally legitimate?
Uh, right. So Sovereignty in the sense, so the problems that you have sort of proposed are more about how sovereign nations internally are abusing their sovereignty, or in terms of Gaza, yeah, of course, externally as well. But the I had presented the point of sovereignty in a very limited sense, right, to rebut the government's argument in their logistical capacity that states violate each other's sovereignty, but they do not willingly surrender their own, right? So leaders' legitimacy and survival, they depend on retaining like this decision-making power at home. So that's why any system requiring states to give up sovereignty collapses. And that was the essential point that we were trying to make, really. And like further imputations from it would really not make sense. So yeah.
Okay, I would like to add one thing, that participants have to keep a record of the time, and it is being displayed on the top right of their screen for the main arguments. For extra, they may ask the permission of the judges. Do judges have any question further?
Nazamuddin sir.
जी बहुत शुक्रिया. Interesting, you have made some interesting arguments, and of course one of the arguments I can relate to the last question, but one slight comment, and it's a little tricky one, not tough but a little tricky one. Why do you see the debate topic is open ended? Okay, this house believes. Why did you approach this topic from the perspective of the government?
With if I were to be completely frank and not academic at all, in the heart of my heart, like I really want reform as well. So I had to rebut myself, and that's why it was easier to do it that way.
So that's it from my side. Okay, thank you.
I have no question.
Okay, sir. With the permission of judges, do the members of virtual gallery have any questions? Okay, so if the judges are satisfied, can we proceed further?
Yes,
Please move.
Okay, so for next round, I would like to call OTC 12 for the motion. The
Am I
floor is
audible?
all yours, OTC 12.
Good evening, judges and member of proposition. The current global system is not merely broken, but unjust. Therefore, a new world order is not a conspiracy, but necessary systematic overhaul of global institutions, power distribution, and governing principle. The old order built in 1945 is based on a reality that no longer exists. Uh, and it can be explained with the help of three major arguments: the legitimacy crisis of the older order, the incapacity to handle existential threats, and the systematic inequity that harms the global south. Taking up argument one, the legitimacy crisis. The current order is fundamentally undemocratic and reflects an outdated power structure. Look no further than the UN Security Council. The five nations granted veto power in 1945 can paralyze collective action for 98% of the world. India, Brazil, and entire continent of Africa have no permanent voice commensurate with their population or economic weight. This lack of representation means decisions made by the system are viewed as illegitimate and self-serving by the majority of the world, leading nations to ignore rules and pursue unilateral actions. A new world order must replace this veto with regionally representative voting mechanism. My second argument is the incapacity to handle existential threats. The old system, based on the sacred primacy of state sovereignty, is incapable of solving transnational existential threats. When dealing with major global problems like climate change and COVID-19 pandemic, the current system doesn't work well. Why? Because it relies on countries volunteering to do the right thing. The countries make promises about cutting pollution, but these promises are not enforced because countries usually prioritize their own short term economic profit over the planet's survival. They often fail to meet their pollution targets. The same problem caused a failure where rich countries hoarded vaccines, showing that self interest won global corporation. We need a new world order that establishes supranational governance with a binding enforcement power over existential threats. If we cannot enforce actions on climate and pandemic, the entire world order, old or new, will collapse. My last argument is systematic inequity and economic collapse. The current liberal international economic order is designed to perpetuate inequality and not solve it. The IMF or the World Bank are governed by a quota system, heavily skewed towards Western power. Developing countries accept measures as conditions for aid, measures that undermine their public service and further trap them in debt cycle, while rich nations are not subject to same scrutiny. What is this? Isn't this economic colonization just with a different name? Of course, the opponent may say that the reform is a better option, but you cannot form a foundation built on imbalance. You cannot reform a foundation built on imbalance. The entire economic architecture must be replaced with one that prioritizes sustainable development, debt restructuring, and equitable resource distribution. The conclusion is current order is failing to legitimize legitimacy of crisis is rendered useless by incapacity of crisis regarding global threats and broken by system of inequity. The world is now fundamentally multipolar. We can either cling to a decaying 1945 relic and invite an era of escalating great power conflict and catastrophe, or we can embrace a new, inclusive, and effective system designed for 21st century itself. The new world order is not a future we choose. It is a necessity that we must build. Thank you.
Thank you, ODC12, for your compelling presentation. With the permission of the judges, we will now move into the rebuttal segment.
Please, please.
With the permission of the judges, do participants have any questions? ODC1, please go ahead.
You have convincingly argued that the current order is unstable, but the history shows that if there is collapse of any international system, there is always, it creates a violent power vacuum. What is your specific? If you dismantle the current order, how can you not trigger a global conflict between rising and established powers?
That is a great question. So I don't want to dismantle any supreme power or international organization. What I want is there should be there should be a change. There should be the things should change. The new rules should be there. We cannot, of course, reform something that is based on imbalance, as I said. So what I want is like the veto powers given to different countries, 5 countries. It is a privilege given to certain countries. Uh, in the 21st century, this is not required. So it should be things should change as per the need and society.
Do judges have any questions?
I think ODC 7 wants to have question.
Okay, ODC 7, please go ahead.
Yes, you talked about supranational solutions and supranational entities to solve the current problems. How do you see the emphasis on the supranational level as opposed to regionalism that is currently proliferating? So we have increasingly more regional organizations, and there are many political economists. Samir Amin comes to one's mind, who said that trying to devise a supranational solution will not work because there is no social basis for it to have any enforceability or power to override other states' ambitions and goals. So he advocated for regional associations. So how do you address this potential criticism?
The thing is that if we actually want to create a supranational organization that would control, so it would definitely be a representative form, and there anything new that will be introduced will of course have its drawbacks as well. But I think that with proper planning and organizing things, it can definitely, with schemes, it can definitely be done.
Do judges have any questions?
Khalid Saab, you have any question?
No, sir. Move on, please.
Again, I don't think the question is a difficult one, but again, it's a little tricky one. Uh, you know, you're talking about, a world order which needs to change but not demolished, replaced. That's your framework. That's how you're looking at it. Now, my question would be: do you think the world order must be established on the basis of enforceability or on the basis of stability? Because 1945, institutions were, especially the United Nations, and you're talking about Security Council. The intention was to secure stability for the world. And many of you who have argued here, they have talked about the issue of enforceability, okay, of the existing rules. What do you think is more important for more, for reimagination or probably for reformulation of a world order? Stability or enforceability?
Of course, stability is important, and enforceability and stability would go hand in hand. But I think, looking at the current scenario, enforceability is very much important, because if the things are, taking a root level example, people don't even follow the basic rules if they are not enforced, if they don't have to give a penalty over it. So I would say that enforceability is important, so that things are actually made to work, so that the public is involved and the government uh, acts according to it as well. So enforceability would create a pressure on people.
That's it from my side.
Thank you.
With the permission of the judges, do members of virtual gallery have any questions?
With the permission of the judges, may I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
ODC 12, I think you mentioned about sustainable development, and I, I'm presuming that there was a reference to the Sustainable Development Goals. So when you're suggesting, say, an improvement in the current world order, not primarily a collapse of the world order, but adding to what Nizam sir asked, but isn't that not against sustainability and stability? Like, how are these two things going hand in hand? Like sustainability, which is essentially an extension of stability, and then an improvement or sort of an evolution.
The thing is that in order to change something, of course, there will be some uncertainties and some is sort of instability as well. But the laws or whatever we are implementing should be good enough that after a certain time, it should bring stability. No new thing that is introduced makes the population or the world stable. Change comes with certain instabilities. So the idea should be in a way that after a certain instability, it should lead to a good conclusion.
That's it from my side.
Okay, if the judges are satisfied, can we proceed further?
Please, please move on.
I would like to invite ODC 1 for the motion.
Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham mapi tavyajat sarvambham hi darshana dhurme agnir ibavrita. One should not give up the work born of one's nature, even if it is imperfect. For all endeavors are wild by fault as fire by smoke. Chairperson, members, and my worthy opponents, the proposition before us is seductive but dangerous. It paints a picture of a broken system and offers a blank canvas for a bright future. We, the opposition, are here to inject a heavy dose of reality into this fantasy. The current world order is our Sahajam Karma, the system we have built and inherited. We do not claim that it is perfect, but the desire of its destruction because of the visible flaws is to abandon the fire simply because it produces smoke. We stand here for clearing the smoke through pragmatic and incremental reforms over dangerous and chaotic revolution. The greatest flaw in the opposition's case is the failure to provide a credible and a peaceful transition plan. History and theory shows that collapse of one order leads to a violent struggle for power, not a peaceful constitutional convention. We are already in a period of strategic competition. To tear down the existing rule based structure is like removing a referee from a tense match. The political scientist Mashmeyer argues that in an anarchic system, great powers are destined to crash. Intentionally creating this power vacuum makes a catastrophic clash almost certain. Further, philosopher Hobbes taught us that life without common power to keep us in check is solitary, poor, and short. The UN system, for all its flaws, is our fledgling global Lithuanian. Dismantling it would plunge the international community into a state where might makes right and the security is every nation for itself. Our opponents want to demolish a flawed house before even having the blueprints of the new one, ignoring the hurricane outside. We must not catastrophize the present. The post-World War II order built around United Nations has been a successful system for managing international affairs in the human history. For nearly 80 years, despite of proxy conflicts, great powers have not gone to war. UN has provided a crucial fireback, a forum for de-escalation. Institutions like WTO and WHO create what theorists might call a complex interdependence, a web of mutual interest that makes conflict more costly than cooperation and a default. Dismantling this would make poorer, sicker, and more vulnerable states. This system is not a static relic. It has evolved to create United Declaration of Human Rights, tackled ozone layer crisis, and has begun grappling the cyber warfare. It is the bedrock of our stability. The proposition does not want to build. They want to gamble the security on a reckless demolition project. The proposition frustration is understandable, but the conclusion is misguided. They see a slow moving institution and want to replace it, We see a slow moving institution and want to make it run faster. Incremental changes work. We can fight for UN Security Council reform to expand the membership or even limit the veto without burning the whole institution down. We can strengthen WHO by giving it more authority. This is hard, unglamorous work of diplomacy, but it is the only work that yields real results. And we must heed to the warning of hubris. Across cultures, there is profound warning against the overweening pride of believing that we can perfectly redesign the world. The story of the Tower of Babel. This is a perfect allegory. A forced top down project for human unity led only to the fragmentation and inability to communicate. A new world order is the modern Babel, the project doomed of its own ignorance. Our opponents are like architects who, upon finding the crack of the citadel, want to demolish it. We are the engineers who know how to reinforce these foundations. Our opponents have painted a picture of a failed world. We see a flawed yet a functioning one. They offer a dangerous leap of the fate into the unknown, ignoring the warnings of the political theory and the timeless stories about the danger human pride. The current world order is the inheritance of our grandparents who built it out of the ashes of the World War. It is our duty to mend it, improve it, and pass it, not to shatter and fit it into the misguided idealism. The path is stability, reform, and prudence. This is the only responsible choice. For these reasons, I urge you to vote against this dangerous motion.
Thank you, ODC1, for your compelling presentation. With the permission of the judges, we will now move into the questionnaire segment.
Please.
With the permission of the judges, do participants have any questions? ODC2, please don't drop your question on the drop text. Please say it verbally if it's possible. ODC7, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. How does the speaker justify the belief that the New World Order will descend into anarchy and chaos? Because Amitav Acharya, the foremost scholar of IR, he recently published a book called Once in Future World Order, in which he says that the fear of chaos is basically a Western fear of chaos, because Europeans believe that non-Western civilizations are incapable of governing the world, of cooperating with each other. But he, on the contrary, shows that economic interdependence, peace treaties, diplomacy, and international law have been key components of uh, non-Western civilizations like the Indian Ocean trade networks, China's tributary system, Islamic civilization. So why do you think that these non-Western civilizations will be unable to govern themselves? And doesn't it exclude diverse historical experiences?
Thank you so much for your question. Firstly, if we try to, if we say that we are demolishing the whole world order, we can't say that the power that US or China holds, being a nuclear state, they will try to protect their power when it comes to the international arena, as we have seen that it is always about power, and it was our first rounds motion as well. So the point is that if we say that we are taking your power, and rather than actually uh, what I trying to make the point is that a slow reform is easier and more feasible to hide from somebody who has a nuclear power and might actually be harmful towards your sovereignty. Hence, what I suggest is that if we demolish it, it will actually lead to chaos, because firstly, who is going to lead it? If somebody leads it, fine. How many will agree towards it? That's the main problem, because it is going there, then there will be a rule wherein everybody is fighting over it.
If the judges allow me, I would like to read the question from ODC2. She is facing some connectivity issues.
Please go
Please.
on. Please move on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So the question from ODC2 is, if your model relies on reform, what leverage do weaker states have to force the strongest states to actually agree to reforms? No mechanization is provided as to what the proverbial fight towards incremental reform looks like.
When we come to reforms, I guess the overall system of UN has also evolved. As we can see from the part of India, with our development and basically our say in UN has increased. If we see from its very starting to now, we can say that we have a more somewhat aggressive strategy as well towards our international relations. So eventually when we come to reforms, it is something which is slow. Hence we can see that even if we take the example of Ukraine, there is, with the help of Ukraine and Russia, if we compare it, it is quite like, it is a difficult uh, basically Ukraine is getting help with the help of US and other, even it is a proxy warfare, but they are getting the help. So basically small states that do not have power, they still get somewhat their share in between. As well as we can see, if we take the example of BRICS, we have seen that they are creating a place wherein everybody has a say. So we can't say that it is doomed. Hence there is a mechanism which eventually with reforms we can come towards for the states who do not have that much power economically and militarily.
Do judges have any questions?
Nizamuddin sir, please.
Most okay. Uh, the question is again, uh, I don't think it should be a tough one, but you have relied on two things. Once you're saying that the 1945 United Nations has given us, has contributed a lot till now, so which is something around 70 years, 80 years. Uh, when the United Nations was established, US was the rising power. So it became a unipolar world. Very quickly after that, the other powers were going down. And then it became a bipolar world. And then, after the demise of the Soviet, USSR, it largely became a US world, a liberal world order. Now, so that's one argument that you're talking about, that you made actually. The second thing is you're talking about reforms. Now, since the rise of multipolar world and the slow decline of United Nations, and even before that, with the bipolar world, at least you have a period of 30-40 years, if not 30-40 years, at least 20-25 years, where countries or scholars have talked about some kind of reform in the United Nations system. Okay, how slow should this be? Because you're saying that it has to be reformed. So I'm kind of bringing in two of your arguments. One argument, you're saying United Nations has given a lot of stability over this 70 or 80 years. I'm pitching that against the argument that there has to be reform. But the question is how slow it should be. Should it be slower than this? By what time it should come? In the next 10 years, 20 years? How do you look at it?
Thank you so much for your question. Firstly, what I mean by the reforms that have been brought by the UN, I guess the global cooperation has increased coming to the environment, which I mean is that the environmental framework, which has improved. We can see the ozone layer depletion has been decreased, and UNEP, and even if it wasn't UN, we wouldn't have our Ministry of Environment, which was there. So yes, there have been they UN has been had a great hand when it comes to global stability. And coming to the reforms, as we can say, when it comes to even India's say in the veto power, it is being publicized a lot as compared to if I look back to 10 or 20 years. So it is gradual, but over the time, I guess for in perhaps as we can see, there is changing global order, and as you mentioned that there is a non-US world which is emerging. So we can say that over the period of 10 years we can have a reform, as well as I guess in UN, as we had seen several times, Russia had abstained from voting if it had something which wasn't according to their whims and fancies. So if developing countries like India and everybody move towards it, so the thing is, for reforms we need to fight for it. We do not need to demolish the whole system. Over the time of 10 years or something, we will be able to achieve it. But as like being very frank, as my mom said, if your child is not good, you will not throw them out of the house, you will beat them up, but you will make them a good human being. So that's what my point is.
Yeah, thank you. And citing your
Khalid sir,
mom is an interesting thing.
Khalid sir, do you have any question?
No, Nizamuddin sir ने पूछ लिया. It's sufficient.
Okay. Okay. With the permission of judges, do members of virtual gallery have any questions?
With the permission of the judges, can I proceed with the question?
Please, please.
Okay. So interestingly, you begin with a Sanskrit couplet, and then went on to say that we build the system. And towards the end of your speech, you said that this world order is an inheritance of our grandparents. Um, and then you, in your speech, you said that collapse of one order leads to chaos, to struggle for power. And since you begin with Sanskrit, and of course, uh, when we look at Indian independence, we say an amalgamation, a unification of the princely states, that is chaos falling into order rather than order falling into chaos. If, of course, the partition was from the Britishers, and the British, of course, partitioned the country. So after the Britishers left, there has been more order than chaos. But even more than that, I would like to highlight this, very interesting lines that might makes right in the new world order. Might makes right. Security of the states is on themselves. So let me look back into the world order, of course, and as you said that we built it. So your world order since the last 100 years, the League of Nations could not prevent the World War II from happening, and of course even after the formation of UN, and it could not prevent the genocides, the ethnic cleansings, of course, the 1945 ethnic cleansing of Jews in Germany and the 1948 ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Palestine. And then of course the United Nations, of course, you, as you said, that the major world powers have not went to war. I would like to underline this line and say that they have not went to direct war. Of course, there have been trade wars, there have been proxy wars. As you look at the Russian invasion of Afghanistan and the US retake over of Afghanistan through the Taliban, then you look at the Turkish, Israeli, and NATO-backed coup, recent coup in Syria, and the rebranding of the Syrian leader. Then, of course, you see another NATO-backed invasion or disruption of the status quo in Sudan. Again, you have NATO-backed disturbances in Ukraine and the NATO-backed invasion of Gaza by Israel. And all through, you see that it is NATO versus the third world, or the second and the third world combined. Right. So how do you say it? And of course, the security of the states is being compromised. And those states which are working with NATO, aligned with NATO, have more rights to defend themselves than the other states. So the other states remain a punching bag until and unless the they remain a punching bag so long as the Western powers are dominant. And when the Eastern powers try to reply and respond to those attacks, there is UN intervention. There is
intervention from the Security Council, the UN, and of course, lobbied by the NATO. And we saw that, when Lebanon struck back at Israel, there was a ceasefire just to let Israel rest. And during the ceasefire, right after the ceasefire, Israel went after Gaza. And then when Iran started to strike back at Israel, there was UN intervention, and Iran was forced to agree to a ceasefire. How do you see then the idea that might makes right only in the new world order and not in the old one? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. So, definitely there have been instances, but if we look back towards when UN started and eventually towards its evolution, we can see that for example, when Russia was attacking at Ukraine, we had seen there were a lot of regulations which was there on Russia by the states who were supporting Ukraine. So there has been a lot of evolution when it comes to the developing nations as well, and stating a lot of philosophers that state that basically there is a constant struggle of power and deviance is a part of society. So definitely there will be instances where there are a lot of things that might not be for a utopian world, but when it comes to other things like helping and other reforms when it comes to UN, there has been there, but always war has been something which is being highlighted the most. If we look at the environment, if we look at perhaps even EVs, I guess it is one of the initiatives of UN. Definitely war and peace has a bigger hand, but the reforms are gradual, as we can see that many states are having their say more and more aggressive outlining framework. So I do not ignore the fact that there has been several gaps which are left by the UN, but a reform gradually will help it rather than demolishing it completely, because if we look at it, nobody is going to take the initiative of it, and that's all.
Thank you, DC1. Um, Now I would like to invite the judges for a feedback. Khalid sir, please.
Every participant has a unique style and they have their own understanding of the subject, and they put their thoughts in somehow in a well organized way, and but is still somewhere missing the zeal and the sheen of the topic, and uh, and anyway, it was quite interesting and engaging, and no specific comment for any of the I mean the the presentation given by the participants.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Nizamuddin sir to please address the gathering.
Thank you very much, Uzair Saab. And the first thing is, it was nice to judge this entire session with Khalid Saab. It was a privilege for me, and of course to be invited by the Virtuosity Legal team. I feel happy that that you conducted this event and it went quite well. Now coming to the today's presentations, I think it was an interesting event. People put up their arguments, but one thing that I would I think agree with Khalid Saab here is uh, the content and the substance has to be backed by the understanding of it. So that is something which I think had to be lagged in some instances. See, it is very easy to write these days. It is easy to speak these days, but and of course to generate content, to get content, it's also easy. To summarize is also easy. uh, in many instances, a rebuttal is the time when you get to know the speaker actually, but you don't have that much time to engage with the people. So, in that way, I think I would agree with Khalid Saab. But otherwise, I think it was a nice attempt, both on part of Virtuosity Legal and, of course, on account of the participants as well. One last thing, and that is, uh, you know, when you are making any kind of argument that 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 you are convinced of, the first thing is that you should be convinced of your stand. So that's the first point of the debate, and that convincingness has to come out clearly. So I think one other thing that I found a little less, and which of course all of you can work a lot, we have time on that as well, is the presentation part and the strategy part. How do you link different topics into each other, and how do they create a kind of flow as to your major argument. So there has to be a central argument, and then there have to be minor arguments that support the central argument. Now, that kind of presentation and strategy, I think, was often found missing, but otherwise, it's all good. So that's it from my side. But thankful to the team and thankful to also the presenters for taking out time and being part of this interesting event. Thank you.
Thank you to both our respected judges for your valuable words and guidance. On behalf of the organizing committee, it is my honor to deliver the vote of thanks to our judges for your time, your thoughtful evaluation, and your inspirational words. To the virtual gallery, the distinguished scholars who enriched this event with their question, perspective, and intellectual engagement. To all our participants, your arguments and energy made Orathon truly vibrant. To our organizing committee and to our audience, your engagement and encouragement meant a lot. Our heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for making Orathon a meaningful and memorable event. With that, we officially conclude Orathon, wishing everyone a very good night. Keep questioning, keep debating, and keep growing. Thank you.